Okay, we're going to continue on in our Father's Word today. This is 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 12. For they served idols, of which the Lord had said to them, You shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all of his prophets, every seer, saying, Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servant the prophets. Nevertheless, they would not hear, but stiffened their necks like the necks of their fathers, who do not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he had made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he had testified against them. They followed idols, became idolaters, and went after the nations who were all around them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. So they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, made for themselves a molded image and 2 calves, made a wooden image, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal, Satan. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire. The Ninevites worshipped Dagon, the fish god, and they took God's little children and threw them into Dagon's altar fire. Then they had sex orgies in the groves. You had Chemosh and you had Molech. They did the same thing. They took God's little children, and God said he didn't know where they came up with that idea. He never thought of it. But they took God's little children and threw them into altar fires and burned them up, and then had sex orgies in the groves. And that's the way they worship these gods. And the daughters to pass through the fire, their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, practiced witchcraft and soothsaying, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them from his sight. And there was none left but the tribe of Judah alone. Now Ben-Hadad was the first Assyrian king to come into the northern tribes, and then Sennacherib was the last. And there was a bunch more in the middle. Over a 200-year period, it took the Ninevites, the people of Mosul, northern Iraq, the Assyrians, took them 200 years to take the 10 northern tribes. And a lot of them were sold into slavery to the Greeks. And then after many, many years of slavery to the Greeks, the master builders, people that built Solomon's temple, the stone masons, and the iron workers, those are the ones that were sold into slavery, the people that did the building, the masons, the Shriners of today, the teamsters. They were sold into slavery to the Greeks, and then over the years, they crossed over the Caucasus Mountains. They're in Greece, northern Greece, and they went into Europe. And those were the people that built all those great stone buildings. Now, the Knights Templar was a bunch of warrior monks that the Pope had let those warrior monks, the Knights Templar, to lead people. They were the first bankers. They were the money people. The money that they needed to build all these stone buildings. You had to have money to build these stone buildings, and you had to have people to build it. So the master builders built the buildings, but the Knights Templar were the bankers. They supplied the money for these great stone buildings all over Europe. And they were built by these master builders all over Europe. Now the tribe of Reuben ended up in France, and Manasseh ended up in the United States and Canada, and the tribe of Ephraim ended up in England and Australia, all the British Commonwealth, New Zealand, all over the world. That's the tribe of Ephraim. And Ephraim was the largest of the 10 northern tribes. And they were taken in 722 BC by the Assyrians. Also, Judah did not keep the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. And the Lord rejected all the descendants of Israel, afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of plunderers, until he cast them from his sight. For he tore Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. Then Jeroboam drove Israel from following the Lord. He made the 2 golden calves, one in Bethel and one in Dan, so they didn't have to walk all the way to Jerusalem to worship God those 3 festival days, or 3 festival weeks. You had Passover, 15 days after the spring equinox, Passover. And then you had 40 days after Passover, Festival of Weeks. Now we have Pentecost, 40 days Jesus was here on earth after the resurrection. And then 10 days later, Penta means 50. Pentecost. Cost means day. The 50th day after Passover is Pentecost. There's no Easter involved in it. And then 6 months after Passover, you got Sukkot, the booths, those things that the Israelites stayed in during their 40 years in the desert. They spend a week, old, young, rich, poor. They spend a week in these booths to remind them of the 40 years that Israel marched around in the desert. So they had 3 major feasts that they went to each year, and they were supposed to go to Jerusalem to worship God, but Jeroboam wanted to save them the trip. Then Jeroboam drove Israel from following the Lord and made them commit a great, great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They did not depart from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So Israel was carried away from their own land to Assyria, Mosul, Iraq, as it is this day. Then the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they took possession of Samaria and dwelt in its cities. And it was so at the beginning of their dwelling there that they did not fear the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. So they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, the nations whom you have removed and placed in the cities of Samaria do not know the rituals of the God of the land. Therefore he has sent lions among them, and indeed they are killing them because they do not know the rituals of the God of the land. Then the king of Assyria commanded, saying, send there one of the priests whom you brought from there. Let him go and dwell there, and let him teach them the rituals of the God of the land. Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. However, every nation continued to make gods of their own, and put them in the shrines and on the high places, which the Samaritans had made, every nation in the cities where they dwelt. The men of Babylon made Succoth, Benoth. The men of Cuth made Nergal. The men of Hamath made Ashima. And the Ammonites made Nibhaz and Tartak and Sepharvaim, burned their children in fire, to Adrammelech and Namamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord, and from every class they appointed for themselves priests of the high places.